Now let's turn our focus to Africa, specifically the Democratic Republic of Congo, or the DRC. The country goes to polls tomorrow, and a new security development is likely to sound the election bugle: the exit of a UN peacekeeping force. It's been around since 2010, stationed in the DRC, but now this force is leaving. And this is an election issue. People are celebrating the end of this peacekeeping mission. Why? Because the mission did not really bring any peace. Look at the DRC. It's been plagued by conflict for years, especially in the east. They see violent clashes between armed groups. The United Nations mission should have helped, but it did not. In fact, people here see the peacekeepers as part of the problem. Many have been caught in sexual abuse scandals and repatriated to their home nations, but not brought to justice. And this story is not unique to the DRC. It's a pattern that follows UN peacekeeping missions, which is why they're becoming so unpopular. And that's what we want to discuss tonight: why these missions increasingly fail to bring peace, but only get bad press. You see, the United Nations does not have a standing army. But when there's a conflict, they're expected to maintain peace. So they ask member nations to send soldiers, sort of like volunteer troops. They come together to create a force, and this is what we call a UN peacekeeping force. It has soldiers from all over the world. As of September, Bangladesh had contributed the highest number of troops, almost 7,000, followed by Nepal, India, Rwanda, and Pakistan. In fact, South Asians form a bulk of the UN peacekeeping forces. And where are they stationed? Again, all over the world. The mission in the DRC is winding up. It's the second mission in Africa to leave. The first was in Mali. It was ended ahead of its time by the host nation in Mali. The mission began in 2013. The government says it made no progress in a decade, so they were asked to leave. Apart from Mali and the DRC, there are 4 peacekeeping missions in Africa, 4 others in West Asia, 1 each in Lebanon and Cyprus, and 2 in territories technically occupied by Israel. Then you have a force in Kosovo, also in India and Pakistan, to observe a ceasefire in Kashmir. That's a total of 12 active UN peacekeeping missions. With Mali and DRC wrapping up, the number will come down to 10. Which brings us to the next question. Why do they face so much backlash? A, because they're seen as ineffective, and B, they're accused of excesses and sexual abuse. And even when found guilty, they often go unpunished. At the risk of generalization, this is the broad trend. Such cases have been reported in Haiti, the Central African Republic, and Kosovo. So if this is so rampant, why doesn't the UN fix it? Why can't peacekeepers be effective, swift, and why can't they leave without indulging in crimes? Because their force has a structural problem. Such peace missions are dependent on donations for both troops and overall funding. They depend on the generosity of others. They're usually short of funds, which slows them down. They also enjoy certain immunities and lack of oversight. The United Nations cannot punish these lawbreakers. When these peacekeepers become lawbreakers, the UN cannot punish them. So they're sent back to their home countries. And the home nations usually just give the soldiers a slap on the wrist and stop them from participating in UN missions again, which is not enough of a deterrent. So some peacekeepers indulge in crime. And that's what makes their missions increasingly unpopular. That is not to say that all of these missions have been useless or unsuccessful. These are supposed to be neutral forces deployed in tense zones. And research shows that in some cases their mere presence helps. It has led to less civilian casualties during conflict. Of course, they're not perfect by any means, but not completely useless either. A lot like the United Nations, you could say. The UN peacekeeping missions, like the United Nations, needs urgent reform, better funding. The soldiers need to face consequences for any wrongdoing, and they need to be given support even if their host nations turn against them for political reasons. If reform does take place, then these UN missions may finally be able to pull their weight. Until then, they will remain paper tigers.